Today we're going to use toxic chemicals to make a delicious liqueur.
I just said, yes, man, right away, anything.
So today we're going to make amaretto. One of the ingredients is apricot kernels, and stone fruit kernels have a compound in them called amygdalin. Amygdalin, when it's in the presence of beta-glucosidase, which is found in your intestines, converts to hydrogen cyanide. And if you have too much hydrogen cyanide, you kind of stop breathing. But in the amounts that you would find it in this bottle of alcohol that I made, spoiler alert, I already made it. Basically, if you drank 750 mils of the liqueur that we're going to make today, you might get a little bit more of the cyanide in your system than you normally would be able to process in a day, so it might make you a little bit sick. But you would also have alcohol poisoning, which would definitely mess up your day. But I mean, here's the thing. You can buy these online, you can buy them in health food stores. Apricot kernels supposedly have some health benefits to them. I don't know that I believe any of that, but basically 10 kernels in one day is the maximum that they recommend. If you were to grab a handful of these and eat 10 of them, your liver is going to process any cyanide that happens to be in them. The total amount of cyanide in the whole bottle is estimated to be slightly above the easy to process threshold. So again, don't drink a whole bottle of this in a day. Probably don't drink a whole bottle of any spirit in a day. That doesn't sound smart. They're just little regular apricot pits. They when you open them, it doesn't smell like much of anything. When you eat it, it tastes kind of like an almond, bitter, and then all of a sudden, amaretto flavor. Like boom, like it explodes in your mouth. So this is where the flavor comes from. This and all the other ingredients we're gonna use. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out of the way. I've got some links down in the video description so you can read more about it. Oh, and one more thing. You can take these, grind them up into a powder, mix them with a little bit of water, and let them sit for an hour. And then roast them in the oven. That will likely cook out a lot of the hydrogen cyanide, but you may also lose some flavor. And so for this recipe, I did not do that. I'm just using the fresh raw kernels because I want to get that traditional flavor without any changes, just so I have a baseline. Now in the future, I may do it with these roasted, just to see if it changes anything and make it a little bit safer. But, you know, I'm not really worried about it. All right, so now that we have the very long disclaimer out of the way, let's move on to the recipe. So let me show you the ingredients that we're going to be using today. Some of it is easy to get, some of it is a little bit more challenging, but I'm going to put links for everything down in the video description so that you can try it out yourself if you want to. Starting off, we've got these apricot kernels. We got 1/4 cup of those. Over here, I've got cherry stones, and you can do these yourself by just taking the pits out of cherries and drying them in the oven at 150 for a couple of hours, and then going and cracking them open with a pair of the rustiest pliers you can find in order to get 1 teaspoon of these seeds. Or you can order a product that I'm going to put down in the video description called Malab. It's the same thing. It's tart cherry stones. It's used as a seasoning in Mediterranean cuisine. So no big deal if you don't want to pitch your own cherries and spend 45 minutes doing that. Moving on, we've got some dried apricots. We got 1 cup of these. We got 1/4 cup of raw almonds. They're not toasted, they're not salted. We've got 1/4 teaspoon of cardamom, or you can use 1 cardamom pod. We got 3/4 tablespoon of fennel seeds, and finally we've got 1 allspice berry, or it might be a rabbit turd, hard to say. And the last 2 ingredients are vodka and brandy. Now I'm using some apple brandy that I made up in this video right up here, and this one has been aging for over a year on French oak and cherry, so I think that'll be a nice addition. Okay, so for the first part of the process, we're just going to do a maceration with all of these ingredients, but first we got to crush some of them up so that they can infuse their flavors. really got it all in there, so probably use a bigger jar. It already smells really good. And when you're crushing up the apricots and the almonds and the cherry stones, it's very fragrant and quite nice. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna be successful. I didn't come up with this recipe all on my own. I am not that smart. So I'm gonna put a link down in the video description for where I got the original recipe. You know, mine is a little different because I like to make changes. We're gonna have a couple more changes as we get in to the final stage of this, but basically, now we just let this sit and macerate, shake it up a couple of times a day. Anytime you walk past it, just give it a little shaky shake and let this go for about 3 weeks so that you can get the flavors in there. Full disclosure, this is the first time I've ever made this. So we'll find out together whether or not this was a dumb idea. See you in 3 weeks. All right, so now we are 3 weeks in. Looks like I have a jar of soup here. It smells absolutely fantastic. My wife said it kind of reminds her of maraschino cherries. My brother-in-law said it reminds him of his mom's fruitcake, because apparently she puts a lot of alcohol in it. Can't go wrong with that. All right, so first off, we're gonna strain this through just a wire mesh strainer. Then we're gonna dump it through some coffee filters to get out all the fine particulate. So while that's draining, we're going to get the second half of this recipe together, and we're going to take a half cup of white sugar and a half a cup of, I still have some Olive Nation coconut sugar left over. That's one of my big changes to this recipe, is using coconut sugar, because coconut sugar has a really nutty and dark and smoky kind of flavor to it compared to like turbinado sugar or brown sugar. We're going to take a half a cup of the coconut sugar and mix that with a half a cup of water. Stick it in the microwave for about 2 minutes until it's heated up and completely dissolved. And while that's cooling off, we're gonna take a half a cup of white sugar and pour that into a non-stick or stainless steel pan. Turn the heat on to medium and then patiently wait while it starts to melt. And you can see here it's starting to melt. You stir it around a little bit, and now you can see it's actually starting to turn brown. And what we're looking for is basically kind of a caramel color. You don't want to go too dark, so it's better to err on the side of caution, go a little bit too light. It's really not going to affect the taste of the recipe that much. So once that caramel is made, you pour your coconut sugar simple syrup into that caramelized sugar, mix it together until it's completely dissolved, and then set that aside to cool. All right, so now that the amaretto is made, I think this is a perfect opportunity to talk about today's sponsor, Staresso. Now, this is a Staresso Mini, and these guys make these awesome little espresso makers. This is a personal travel size, comes with a cool travel case. This company sent me this thing to test out, and I gotta say, it makes fantastic coffee. And so we're gonna use that today with some of our amaretto to really test it out. And here's the other cool thing they just sent me. This little Rock to More. This is a milk frother. It's kind of unassuming, but it's really cool. You got your little frothy doodad in here. Just me personally, I think this is the coolest feature. There's a little button on the top here. Push it, and it pops off, cause it's got magnets. What? I know I shouldn't be so excited about that, but I think it's really cool. Because you can take this off and throw it in the dishwasher and make sure it gets nice and clean. So we're gonna use both of these to make a drink with our amaretto. I've been experimenting, I've been testing stuff out, and I'm really excited. We're gonna make an amaretto foam latte to go with this espresso because that just sounds awesome. And you really just need to shake this for about 20 seconds to get a nice good froth in there. And now we're just gonna add 2 teaspoons of our amaretto. Give it another quick shake to incorporate it. And now we have an amaretto latte. Holy crap, that's good. So I love this. This is now my travel guy. I've had this for about a month. I've used it about 30 or 40 times. And it's really awesome. I dig it. So if you want to pick up these guys for holiday gifts or for yourself, I'll put the links down in the video description for you. Okay, so now it's time to taste the amaretto all by itself so I can give you guys an idea of how this is actually going to come out. So one thing you'll notice is that this stuff separates. We've got a layer down here, and that's sediment from the coconut sugar or the nut meats. And then up here, we've got a layer of oil. And that's also from the almonds and the nuts and the seeds. This has only been strained and then put through a coffee filter one time. If you'd like to clarify it, just run it through a coffee filter several times, and the hardest part to get out is going to be the oil. So what you can do for that is stick it in the freezer and let it get nice and cold for a couple of hours and then filter it. That's going to help to coagulate some of the oils and get them to stick together a little bit better so they stick to the coffee filter and don't come through. And you'll notice mine is actually pretty dark. It's going to keep clearing over the next couple of weeks. It's all just going to drop clear. This stuff is kind of like the limoncello that I made. You remember in the limoncello, it was really cloudy when I first made it, and now it's crystal clear with some, you know, kind of scunge down at the bottom. That's just the way it goes. So eventually this is going to drop clear in a week or two, and honestly you want to let this sit for a week or two so that the flavors can all marry together, because you've got a lot going on in here. Now if you don't want yours to be as dark as mine, I like a little bit more of a cooked sugar kind of flavor in my amaretto, so that's why I went a little bit dark. But if you want more of a Disaronno kind of color, just pull your sugar off when everything's dissolved and liquefied, but it's just starting to get that light caramel color. And then mix in your coconut sugar and water, simple syrup. And if you want it even lighter, use turbinado sugar instead of coconut sugar, and it's going to come out even lighter. But to me, the flavor of the coconut sugar is so much more complex and delicious. Oh, and before we do a full-on tasting of this, I just need to thank all of the Patreons. All of my Patreons, especially you guys right down here, thank you so much for sticking with me and constantly giving me new ideas. 2 or 3 times a week, you guys send me stuff that I just have to add to the list that is growing and growing because you guys have so many cool ideas. So thank you so much for that. You're keeping this channel alive and you're keeping my lights on. So thank you guys so much. Yeah. Cherries, almonds, kind of a marzipan. If you know what that is, it's basically almond paste. And to me, that's what amaretto always kind of has to it, is this kind of marzipan kind of quality, and it's just good. Oh yeah. So you remember we put fennel in there, so you get a little bit of that licorice bite, the bitterness from the almonds and the apricot kernels. The cherry kind of has a lot more of an aromatic quality than I was expecting, because you smell those little seeds and they don't really smell like anything. Once they steep in that alcohol, holy crap, that flavor comes through. Mine is pretty sweet, so keep that in mind. What you may want to do is strain yours out, get it nice and clear, and then add your sugar syrup to it a little bit at a time. Like add half of it, stir it and taste it and see if it's where you like it. Because You know, for me, I have a sweet tooth, so I like the stuff pretty sweet, especially if I'm going to end up putting it in a coffee. That's why I wanted to make amaretto, because I can dial it in with any of the ingredients that I want. Is this worth it? Absolutely. You need to do this recipe. With the holidays coming up, you can start this one right now, and it's gonna be ready at Christmas time, and everybody's gonna be like, you made this? This is amazing. Yes, that's how good this is. So make some amaretto. If you like coffee, or you have someone in your life that likes coffee, links for these guys down in the video description. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned anything, do me a favor and hit the like button, because it helps out the channel immeasurably. If you have any questions, comments, if you've done an amaretto before, I'd love to hear what your recipe is. Post that in the comments section. Share with the community. That'd be awesome. And if you're not subscribed, but you enjoy this kind of content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon right next to it so that you can get notified when I post new content. All right. Thanks for watching. Talk at you later.